Alrighty, everybody. Welcome. It's been a long time since we did our last stream, so there are a couple study streams. So I haven't done a political stream in some time now, so I haven't really been keeping up with the news very much. So I thought I would kind of listen to some news and see what we would figure out about everything and how all of that goes. So hopefully everybody can hear kind of what we're thinking about and what we're showing, and we'll be on our way to do something kind of fun for today. I'm only going to be able to go till about just before 5 o'clock, and then I have to excuse me, then I have to go to a study stream, I guess you would, or not a study stream, I'm thinking Twitch terms now, go to a study group that I'm part of for one of my classes. So we may not be able to cover all of the topics I have up for today's stream, but yeah, we'll see what we can cover, as I'm kind of just refreshing myself and seeing the topics I missed in the news and just kind of what's happening right now, because in a large way I've been kind of removing myself from reading the news as I stop the podcast. But I'm going to be having a podcast episode starting back next week, so we'll be continuing with the podcast. I was on my friend's show, Ana Voltes, talking about the justice system. We did several live streams about the justice system, or I did, not so much we. And I thought that was rather interesting and something that was good and very informative, really, for myself. So I'm glad that I went ahead and did that live and everything. So, yeah. But I was on his show, Ana Voltes, talking about the justice reform, or the criminal justice system in general, really, than one particular topic of justice reform per se. But it was very informative, and actually probably one of our better discussions that we have had on either of our channels, really. And this next Thursday, it's going to be live on my channels at 12 a.m. East, or Central Time, or 11 a.m. Eastern Time, if I can speak. And we're going to be discussing the education system, but more importantly, how we think we could fix the educational system.
Live TV from 85 plus channels with local sports.
And no, I do not have YouTube Premium, although I probably should have YouTube Premium at this point, because ads really get on my nerves, and I think they kind of get on everyone's nerves. I'm not really sure how much ads actually do for the companies that attempt to do the ads or pay for the ads or whatever you want to say, but obviously they must work in some ways, or we wouldn't really be able to, companies wouldn't necessarily buy the ads. So anyway, enough jibber jabber. I just wanted to introduce that. I will introduce one more thing before we get into covering the news, and that is next week I'm going to have my stream topics being fixing the educational system, and then it's going to end with that Thursday episode with Ana Voltes, my co-host for Getting the Answers, where we are going to discuss his philosophy and talk about my philosophies and just kind of have a general discussion, I guess you could say, about our ideas on how to ultimately fix the issues at hand for the system. So that's going to be next week, and I think the week after that, my stream theme, I guess you could say, is going to be about the Libertarian Party, as I want to learn more about the Libertarian Party myself, because I'm starting to become more and more I guess you would say, libertarian-minded when it comes to picking a particular political party than any of the other political parties that are available to pick from, really. So we're going to be spending a stream topic on that, or maybe just a couple of streams. We'll see. Just depends on how much information I can find or what kind of comes up. But I do plan to stream 3 times a week, starting from this next week and going on till I'll have to change the schedule maybe for summer school, because I am taking some summer school classes and whatnot. But my plan is to do stream 3 times a week, if not more, from now till the foreseeable future, and I may even do more than that, but the goal is 3. Now let's get in to see some news and what we have kind of been missing. This first topic is about potential racism from a sheriff, and in general potential racism for Asian Americans or Asians in general after COVID-19. We all know we all know that COVID had some major implementations. We all know that COVID had some major issues from a health perspective, from a economy perspective, from a individual perspective, through society, or through your relationships with friends, or maybe even your relationship with your family, or your relationship with your kids. COVID had some major impact in trying to solve the issue of conflicts when it comes to many concerns you might have. But one of the things we started to see off of COVID was people getting mad at Asian Americans or Asians for causing the virus on us, or how do I want to say this? There's a big thought by some that they were the ones that caused the virus, even if they didn't necessarily live in China or had any role in implementing the virus. But just because it came out of China or came out of Asia per se, for a lot of people, some weirdos out there decided to pick on some Asian Americans, and there's been several just bizarre crimes against Asian Americans off of purely COVID in general, and that really being their only impact for doing whatever they wanted to do ultimately for COVID. So I thought that was very interesting. And there were several examples of this, and I don't think that any of the news articles are talking about these particular... I don't know if these news articles are ultimately talking about these particular reasonings for it as well. Man, I'm having trouble speaking. Let's put it this way. I know there were some examples in San Francisco, especially where people were pushing over Asian Americans, and there was an example, I believe the man was 87 years old, maybe he was a little older than that, but very up there in age, and he got pushed onto the ground / into a garage, and he ended up dying from that incident. And it turned out that the person who pushed the older gentleman, was a African American, so there were many claims that some were suggesting the police weren't talking about it because of that, or if it was a white, blah 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 blah. You have the average claims you hear about when it comes to police from both angles, or from both political perspectives or social perspectives, or whatever word you ultimately want to say there. So there were several kind of bizarre examples of violence. but recently there was a shooting where somebody took it to a couple more levels of extreme in being the actual shooting of somebody, not even necessarily a stabbing, but a extremely violent act of shooting someone based off of them being Asian American, and the bizarre belief by them being Asian American they have somehow caused COVID, or are the reason that COVID is existing in the first place, or whatever kind of summary you want to use from there. So we're going to read a couple articles based off of that most recent shooting, if my understanding is right about the topic. But first, there was a couple articles that were a little bit bizarre of a sheriff who supposedly had some racist type of claims. And before I read the article, because I briefly just read it over before I started for today's episode, so I don't want to say something that turns out to be wrong, but it seems like another one of these very strange, weird examples of violence against Asian Americans that really shouldn't even be a thing by any means at all. So I just think that is just strange. That is just very, very strange on why that is happening. So we're going to go ahead and start into today's first article here. Real quick, I'll check to make sure if anybody's listening now, you can definitely let me know if I should turn on the volume more for music, or turn down the volume on the music, or whatever audio wise you are hearing, to make it the best experience possible. Alright, I'm going to test the audio here on my phone a little bit, just in case. I want to make sure that any new viewer who comes in will be able to understand everything and nothing's too extreme in the nature of that. So we're going to just test that real quick. So make sure all of the audio is up and ready to go before we get into this first article about the sheriff and his kind of bizarre thing that he was doing, which I still don't ultimately understand, but hopefully after reading these articles we can get into what he was saying. So here by CNN, it states, Cherokee County, Georgia Sheriff spokesperson allegedly posted a photo of a racist anti-Asian COVID-19 shirt on Facebook. And we're going to read from CNN. A photo allegedly posted by Captain Jay Barker, a public information officer at the Cherokee County, Georgia Sheriff's Office, shows shirt with racist and anti-Asian message about COVID-19. COVID-19 imported virus from China. The racist shirt in the photo, racist shirt in the photo posted April 2nd. Sorry about that. Although the account that posted it had been deleted, CNN was able to access the photos through a cached copy. I don't know if I said that right, but anyway, the name of the Facebook account matches Jay Baker, and it claims that the individual is an employee of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office. The Daily Beast was first to report on the racist shirt photo. They also reported the account posted photos of Baker in uniform with his name tag visible.
Sitting here with Bruce Springsteen. It's good to see you, my friend.
It's good to see you also.
We come from such different places. It turns out there's a lot of overlap.
Renegades.
Sorry about that. Where is that playing from?
Original podcast from Higher Ground. Listen free
Committed to work that changes lives both near and far. Research marked by quality, visibility.
Sorry about that. Always hate those autoplay ads. Man, they drive me crazy. That's always like using Safari for the articles because I have a ad blocker that works a little bit better than the Chrome version. I have the Chrome one kind of crappy that I installed, so I think I may look to install a better ad blocker for Chrome. I apologize for that. When contacted by CNN about the post, Baker told CNN no additional comment. Love my shirt, the photo caption of the shirt reads. It goes on encouraging others to buy their own shirts, saying get yours while they last. CNN reached out to the store selling the shirts, but did not immediately receive a response. Okay. So, my first question I have really about this article is, what ultimately is CNN, or what is ultimately people by messaging the original hoster of the shirts, the company that is selling the shirts, the company that is going to give the shirts out? Are they more at fault, or is the person who is wearing the shirt messaging about the shirt and telling people to buy the shirt more at fault? And obviously I think when it comes to why the article is talking about and what people are more outraged about, it is the second option. The more annoyed that the officer picked the shirt to wear with the claims that could very easily be perceived as being racist or can very easily be seen as being racist. So ultimately what I'm trying to say here is I don't really know if you could ultimately blame the shirt company directly in this article or in this opinion, because I don't ultimately think that that is the main reason for what was involved, or what really is kind of at the main theme of this article or the main theme of this story. You could obviously have some arguments against that claim, saying that the company who is selling the shirt should still be at fault for having a racist message, and then you have claims against that with freedom of speech, or is it hate speech? You know, you have your classic discussions when it relates to those two topics about these shirts and about about the shirts in this particular example. And I think we're always going to be having the debates of freedom of speech versus hate speech, or is this hate speech, or whatever claim you ultimately want to state from that point, because people are ultimately it has become more easy to talk about those things when it comes to maybe cancel culture, or when it comes to just what good speech is and what bad speech is and things related to that. I don't know if I really explained myself too well there, but that was kind of the gist of what this CNN article was talking about. We're going to go to our next article here, which is kind of talking about this similar incident, but this is ultimately about the shooting I was just mentioning. Because before the shooting, the crimes against these Asian Americans were more kind of bizarre, is kind of the best word I can come up with. They weren't ultimately like super well planned, or it wasn't necessarily violent, even though there was the example of a man dying from the incident and what happened in San Francisco, and other examples of many others who got injured from being pushed over. But ultimately, it's not as violent as, say, an armed robbery, or say a stabbing, or in a very worst case, say a shooting. But unfortunately, we have seen the implementation or the usage of a shooting happening very recently. And this article is by the Atlantic Journal-Constitution, and it states, a crime against us all, outrage grief after deadly spa shootings, from this man here. But we're going to read to see what the Atlantic Journal-Constitution says. Metro Atlanta was gripped by shock and anger on Wednesday, the day after the deadly shooting spree killed 8 people, most of them Asian women. Our hearts are broken for the victims and their families, and we are certainly keeping them in our prayers, said Governor Brian Kemp. We will let the investigation continue, but it was a traffic night in our state. Now, for those going back to the Orange Man as president or Donald Trump as president of the United States, there's many people that did not like the usage of Trump calling the virus China virus or Chinese virus or any other kind of related term to China and the virus itself. And I definitely heard people at the time mentioning that they thought this type of rhetoric could make people become angry at a wrong thing. So instead of being angry at maybe their governor for what he or she planned to be their economic process for trying to not have a virus spread and to have an economy that we would be able to survive from, I would be able to get to work faster, or whatever your claim ultimately would be, they were afraid that they would ultimately be angry at the wrong type. And in particular, this wrong type that I heard many people mention would be getting angry at Asians and more importantly, Asian Americans in their state and whatnot. And if the claim were to continue, there could obviously be some major problems relating to those claims or to the details of what would ultimately happen. So I guess what I'm trying to mention here is that many people were speculating that calling COVID-19 the Chinese virus could lead to people being racist or people being whatever ultimately, and could cause unnecessary violence to something what shouldn't have really ever been a thing. Anyway, but we'll read what this article has to say here. Robert Aaron Long, 21, appeared in South Georgia Thursday night, has been charged with 8 counts of murder and 1 count of aggravated assault. He has been returned to Cherokee County, where the first shootings took place on Tuesday. A motive is still not clear, but a crime against any community is a crime against us all, said Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. If I never, anyway, I have remained in close contact with the White House and APD as they work with federal, state, and local partners to investigate the suspect who was responsible for the senseless violence in our city. Long told investigators he frequented the type of businesses targeted in the Tuesday shootings, calling them a temptation he wanted to eliminate. During his interview, he gave no indications that was racial. During his interview, he gave no indicators that this was racially motivated, Cherokee Sheriff Frank Reynolds said Wednesday. We asked him that specifically, and the answer was no. So obviously, this goes to the claim whether you should ultimately trust the person at hand in what they have to say about their claim being potentially racially motivated or not. And I don't ultimately think that somebody, even if they are racist, would want to tell the police that they are racist, even if they are racist themselves, just because of the implications it could have on them. And I think that's kind of pretty obvious of a thing to say, so I don't really see that as being too crazy, but we'll continue on. Long also told investigators his plan was to drive to Florida I'm gonna put up the be right back screen real quick while this vacuum is right by the room.
The Bachelor is back. Stream it live on ABC with YouTube TV.
Tonight, I'll be eating a calzone from Doughballs in Aurora. Rock on.
Tonight, I'll be eating lobster thermidor.
It's weird. Okay. So Long also told investigators his plan was to drive to Florida. He was caught late Tuesday about 150 miles south of Atlanta, thanks in part to his parents, according to police. The FBI is assisting with the investigation. Communities around the metro Atlanta reacted swiftly on Tuesday's violence. The city council announced it would pass a resolution condemning the violence, while the Gwinnett Police Department said it would also step up protocols around Asian-owned businesses. Excuse me. Although there was no known threats at this time, these patrols will continue for the foreseeable future for the safety and comfort of the community, the department said. If anyone sees something that may appear suspicious or potentially criminal in nature, they are encouraged to call the police immediately. As stricken loved ones grieve the sudden loss of the victims taken Tuesday night, investigators continue to piece together what happened. Hours before the shooting started, Long bought a gun from Big Woods Guns in Holly Springs. An employee told the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, now the store is operating with law enforcement. A 9mm firearm was found when Long was arrested. The first incident happened around 5 p.m. Tuesday at Young's Asian Massage Parlor in Ackworth, according to police. Surveillance cameras captured a man entering the business, then leaving after shots were fired. 4 people died from their injuries, according to the police. And then it lists the names of those individuals that died from the shooting, as well as those who were injured from the incident as well. So that is very bizarre. And also the article gives a little bit more depth depth into the particular incident and details. So if you do want to read that, you can find it at their website as well. Ooh. Hopefully nobody saw that one. I need to go back to using Safari probably, but I just like Google Chrome a little bit better. But anyway, this is the same incident of the sheriff in the shirt we were just talking about, but this one is by the New York Times. A sheriff deputy faced criticism for saying the suspect had a bad day and for anti-Asian Facebook post. A sheriff deputy in Georgia who has been a main conduit for information about the deadly rampage at 3 Atlanta area massage businesses faced criticism on Wednesday for saying that Tuesday was a really bad day for the suspect and for the anti-Asian Facebook post that he made last year. At a news conference, the deputy, Captain J. Baker, the spokesperson for Cherokee County Sheriff's Office, discussed the frame of mind of the man charged with 8 counts of murder in Tuesday's shootings. He said that the suspect, Robert Aaron Long, 21, of Woodstock, Georgia, had understood the gravity of his actions when he was interviewed by investigators on Wednesday morning. He was pretty much fed up and had been kind of at his end rope, Captain Baker said. Yesterday was a really bad day for him, and this is what he did. The comments were widely pinned on social media, with the critics criticizing them as callouts and pointing to the Facebook post from March 30th and April 2nd of last year by Captain Baker, in which he promoted sales of an anti-Asian t-shirt, the shirts echoing the rhetoric of President Donald J. Trump. And this is what I was just talking about a little bit earlier. And obviously, I think it's a little bit extreme to say that that is the sole motive, or even maybe one of the reasons for that motive in particular. But obviously, there is some speculation or some reasoning to think that it could have been related to causing more anger at somebody, and maybe not necessarily cause the anger directly per se to the person, but could have very easily been a large reason as to promoting more unnecessary violence, or more, at the very least, unnecessary anger at a certain group or a certain population that should have never have that happen, because it's not really related at all. And my computer is dying, but it should continue for a little bit here. Let's see. Oh, never mind. What is this? Okay. Yeah, we're good. We are good. So this is by the Business Insider here, if the website will log on or not. An elderly Asian woman fought back against a man who attacked her, and the video appears to show him bloodied on a stretcher. So this is a case of an example where the Asian American won instead of her attacker, and for obvious reasons I won't be able to show images of the particular incident and what happened here because of YouTube and Twitch's guidelines on that, but we'll read kind of the details of this incident. An elderly Asian woman turned the tables on her attacker after being assaulted in downtown San Francisco, picking up an object on the street to defend herself with. Zeke, I don't know how to say her name, unfortunately, but she reported had been attacked on the San Francisco Market Street while waiting to cross at a traffic light. The police indicated her attacker as a 39-year-old a 39-year-old man, according to the local outlet. Witnesses said she fought back after being punched in the face, picking up a piece of wood she found on the roadside to fend the man off. The XPIX reporter Dennis O'Donnell posted a video on Twitter that apparently showed the aftermath of the attack. In the video, she is seen holding an ice pack to a black eye, while a blonde man bleeding from the mouth appears to be handcuffed to a stretcher. In the video, she is heard questioning the man in Cantonese, saying, "You bum, why did you hit me?" According to KPIX, the San Francisco police are also investigating the same suspect in connection to the beating of the 83-year-old Asian man soon before she was attacked. The San Francisco police are investigating the attacks to determine whether they were racially motivated. I think you know the answer to that one already, but we'll continue on here. Her grandson, John Sheen, has also started a GoFundMe page to raise funds for the grandmother's medical treatment and therapy. She is now suffering 2 serious black eyes and one that is bleeding unstoppably, Shin wrote. Her wrist has also swelled up. She has been severely affected mentally, physically, and emotionally. Shin added that his grandmother told him she was traumatized and terrified and afraid to step out of her home from now on. "I am amazed by her bravery," she said. That she was the one that defended herself from this unprovoked attack, he said. And it talks a little bit more about some recent attacks, as I was mentioning at the start of today's episode, or whatever you ultimately want to call this. But I thought that was rather interesting, and the claims and evidence are what was happening based off of those attacks. Now we're going to wait for a little bit more details from the San Francisco police on what their procedure is going to be, or what they plan to do for the incident of it being racially motivated or not. But from the sounds of the articles and the incidents, it probably is at least have some sort of racial motivation to it, especially in the case of San Francisco, where that last incident we just read about happened, because there is now several strings of history of Asian Americans being targeted a lot more than before, or an average, or whatever word you ultimately want to use. So this next topic that I have is about Cuomo, and this is by Fox News, I believe. Yes, Fox News. It states Cuomo's got to go, says plain banner over New York State House. And that's another kind of interesting thing, and it was being talked about before I even left where spring break, or before I really started my podcast, or whatever you ultimately want to say there. But there's been a big push to try to get rid of Andrew Cuomo, when at one point Cuomo was looking pretty good in the political sphere or political topics, and some were even thinking that he was going to run for president or going to be a VP option at one point in the political cycle before Joe Biden won the nominee, and Joe Biden said it was going to be a person of color, or most likely a person of color, and then said it was going to be a woman person of color. So that obviously took him off the books for both of those incidents. So, but yeah, at one point he was one of the more strong Democratic candidates that a lot of people chose to point to, and many people thought he was running COVID cases good right after the spike that New York had because of their over congestion per the residents. They have a lot more residents per capita, I guess you could say, than compared to many other states. So they were battling with that quite a bit. But now, after there were some incidents of Andrew Cuomo and him not being the smartest, I guess would be the best terminology, and his, especially the examples of not nursery rhymes, but what are they called? Can't remember their name right now. But we'll read the article, see what it's got to say here. It's high time. A banner on a plane flying near the state capitol in Albany. Yeah, I don't know why. A banner on a plane flying near the state capitol in Albany on Wednesday said embattled Governor Andrew Cuomo's got to go. The banner was bankrolled by 3 women rights advocacy groups, Women's March, Ultraviolet, and Girls for Gender Equality. The sky turned unfriendly for the governor when the New Yorkers say Cuomo's got to go banner flied by the Capitol building in downtown Albany after 11 a.m. The female activist said Cuomo must step down after several women accused him of sexual assault. There's also that going around as well that I forgot to mention. So not only does he have the claims of him not managing COVID in the best way, or even really a good way for that matter, there's also claims about Andrew Cuomo and what he has done to women and the Me Too movement and sexual harassment claims against Andrew Cuomo. And a lot of the evidence people don't ultimately think is that deeming or doesn't seem that suspicious to maybe put him away criminally or him even to step down as the governor. But it ultimately comes down to if you believe the accusers or not. So if you're one to automatically believe or automatically favor believing the accusers than the accused being Andrew Cuomo, then you might believe the claims of the sexual harassment, but we are yet to know if that is 100% true or not. But for many, just by him having those claims alone, it could be seen as a very bad deal for Andrew Cuomo and his political future. But we'll continue on here. The governor has denied wrongdoing and has refused to resign, arguing he's entitled to due process and the New Yorkers should await the results of an investigation overseen by the state attorney general Leetta James regarding the accusations by former staffers before making a judgment. He has even claimed he's a victim of cancel culture, as I was just mentioning earlier. Governor Andrew Cuomo has proven himself to be a serial predator who abuses his power. His office and the women who work for him, said Rachel O'Leary, executive director at the Women's March. Joanna Smith, CEO of the Brooklyn-based Girls for Gender Equality, said, "The time for men in power abusing, harassing, and grooming women and all people subordinate to them is over. New Yorkers will not tolerate gender and sexual violence. It's time for Andrew Cuomo to resign." To the people who have survived sexual and emotional abuse from the New York's governor, we see you and we believe you. And then it talks a little bit more of that incident, but that's really kind of the major claims. And another reason why people are wanting Andrew Cuomo, the mayor of New York, to step down for several reasons, but the most recent and most popular and most biggest, I guess you would say, is the factor of him and his sexual harassment claims getting called against him. but we will see about this article by the New York Post here. Lindsey Bullin won't cooperate with sham Cuomo impeachment probe. These women, whose allegations sparked to Governor Andrew Cuomo's unfolding sexual harassment scandal, on Wednesday called an impeachment investigation against him a sham and vowed not to cooperate. Meanwhile, another accuser said she was set to spend up to 3 hours being interviewed by independent investigators conducting a separate probe for Attorney General Letitia James. In a pair of tweets, former Cuomo aide Lindsey Bullin reported attacked Assembly Speaker Carl Hinsey, Democrat, who last week authorized an impeachment investigation by the Assembly Judiciary Committee. Do not trust at Carly blah blah blah. His impeachment investigation is not designed to be transparent, or to move fast. There is nothing wrong. There is nothing the governor wants more than time, she wrote. Many of us have not put our lives on the line for this crap. I certainly have not and will not. Bullin, now a Democratic candidate for Manhattan, Manhattan Borough President, also said that she and unspecified other women would not cooperate with the Judiciary Committee's probe. What would the point of survivors talking to investigators of your sham investigation? She wrote, I am in conversation with other women who have no interest in your corrupt, cynical investigation. It is clear that the investigators are moving exponentially and taking their work seriously. Blah 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 blah. Talks a little bit more about that. So just some general claims about Andrew Cuomo and people wanting Cuomo to step down based off of just morals or just ethics alone, and also claims that he is trying to make the process longer because maybe people will forget about it, or at least not be as passionate about it. In general, time gives people a chance to change the trajectory of how maybe the public views something. So I think that is what she was ultimately talking about in that article. This is by the Politico, and it states here, least bipartisan gain tries to save Senate from itself. As the progressives push the Senate into brawl over nixing the legislative filibuster, a group of senators is setting out to do the impossible, prove that Marbury chamber can still function. A group of 20 senators, mostly centrist, but also including some more ideological members of both parties, is seeking to replicate its success last year, breaking a months-long logjam on coronavirus relief. The so-called G20 hopes to develop bipartisan approaches to issues like the minimum wage, immigration, infrastructure, and the process of providing a compelling argument against axing the filibuster if it can produce results. Ooh, okay, so this is getting into some political philosophy, I guess the best terminology I could use for that. And I guess I'll start here. I don't ultimately think that is entirely a bad thing to have a group of centrist senators, even though I'm not really sure who I would say is even centrist in Congress or in the Senate, because really I tend to think that nobody is ultimately centrist when it comes to our political system, especially when you're talking about people who are actually serving as politicians. Is there actual centrist people or people who don't really care about politics? So they usually are even, okay, let's put it this way. People who don't care about politics and don't choose to follow politics tend to either believe what their parents believe or have a very centralist type of approach. So there is that as well. Forgot what I was trying to say now. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But man, what was I trying to say here? Okay, I remember. Basically, I don't really think that politicians are ultimately centrist, especially the politicians who choose to have a political agenda. So in other words, anybody who is a congresswoman, a senator, or any form of having governmental power, even you could say maybe a legislator, I don't think is ultimately that centrist in thinking, because it takes a person who is very much fits the political party's identity to get the votes of its people. So even a centrist type of candidate in government, I don't think really is truly a centrist when it comes to many issues. So I'd argue based on that front that I don't know if you're actually going to get even reputation or even ideas from both sides because of that example alone. But I think I'm going to go ahead and call the stream for today, because I don't really see anybody stopping by yet, which is all good. But I'm going to go ahead and read the rest of the articles and get ready for my study group. I was going to end a little bit later, but we'll just stop now. I'm having trouble reading the articles anyway, so I don't necessarily know if this is excellent content or not. But I'm going to try to do something tomorrow, maybe something a little bit better, more fun tomorrow, and we'll figure that out. If you have any ideas, you can definitely reach out to me. Highly appreciate anybody who maybe is watching now or is going to watch later, but I'm going to unfortunately have to call